Jehovah's Witnesses pride themselves on the claim that they obey all governmental laws that do not contradict with God's laws. This is based on the scripture found at Romans 13:1.
Let every person be in subjection to the superior authorities, for there is no authority except by God. The existing authorities stand placed in their relative positions by God.
But is their claim to follow the law accurate? In their publication, Worldwide Security Under the Prince of Peace, on page 33 it states, in the United States, the book The Finished Mysteries was banned as seditious. The two authors of the book were brought into federal court in Brooklyn, New York, and unjustly sentenced to 20 years of confinement in a federal penitentiary. How is this unjust if they were found guilty of a crime in a court of law? In a Watchtower propaganda film entitled Stand Firm Against Nazi Assault, they describe in great detail their criminal enterprise of smuggling in Watchtower's subversive mind control literature.
I'd like to welcome you to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. It is both a privilege and an honor to have you as our guests today, because your story is an extremely important one.
The majority of people are inspired by propaganda or by the people around them. It's perhaps not out of wickedness, but they are just swept along by a river of propaganda.
The Reichstag building, the seat of the German parliament, burns. The Nazis immediately blame the communists, and Hitler pressures President von Hindenburg to issue an emergency decree. The enabling act soon follows. In one German state after another, the police shut down meetings of the witnesses and prohibit their door-to-door preaching. So, the witnesses launched a campaign. 3 years under ban, and the witnesses are still active. The Gestapo have to mobilize a special unit to hunt them down.
Jehovah's Witnesses were amongst the first of the prisoners to go into Dachau, which was the so-called model concentration camp, and into the labour camps. And I have evidence of that in 1934, and certainly by 1935.
By the end of that year, 6,000 witnesses were in Nazi prisons and camps.
Starting in 1937, Jehovah's Witnesses were given a purple triangle as a sign. Jehovah's Witnesses were the only religious group that made up a separate category of inmates.
The Jehovah's Witnesses received especially severe treatment from the SS because they put up such great resistance, because in their conduct they displayed much resistance.
The Nazis falsely branded Jehovah's Witnesses as communists, menaces to the state, conspirators with the Jews to take over the world. By 1933, the stage was set for battle. Whenever the Nazis smashed an underground organization, another quickly filled the breach.
The Gestapo reckoned that every time they arrested a group, we were completely finished. They were utterly mistaken. But right up until the end of the war, the Watchtower was being distributed all over Germany.
Amazingly, Wewelsburg camp itself becomes a source of Bible literature after a major underground printing operation is finally discovered and shut down by the Nazis in April 1943. Its organizer, Julius Engelhardt, is arrested and beheaded. The witness prisoners in Wewelsburg camp picked up the slack by setting up a secret printery right under the noses of the SS guards.
Had they been discovered, they would have been sentenced to death straight away. We know that they procured a typewriter.
With the typewriter, they made stencils to use on a duplicating machine built with smuggled parts.
Der We did the duplicating in the dormitory. Work on the typewriter was done using a silencer.
Literature was also miniaturized to make it easy to hide. For instance, there was a matchbook-size edition of the 1934 publication, Jehovah.
So, if anyone caught us, they would only have found the old hats first.
Ein Mensch hatte sein Leben lang das Böse getan. Anderem sterben lang. Dieser ein Katholik.
Nazi newspapers complained about another witness too for preaching. Specially built gramophones that boldly spoke out their message. Some records were sneaked in from Switzerland. Others were produced within Nazi Germany by Georg Chloe, one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Gestapo Chief Himmler ordered the gramophone problem stopped. Another conduit for smuggling literature into Germany was a Finnish doctor, Felix Kirsten, Himmler's personal physician. Soon, the witnesses would be forced underground in country after country. Key organizers, Erich Frost, Arthur Winkler, and others, put their lives on the line for their fellow believers as they tried to keep one step ahead of the Gestapo. The 1934 Basel Convention marked a turning point for the witnesses. Plans were set for a worldwide protest directly to Hitler on October 7th. German witnesses met in secret.
On that day, at 9 o'clock in the morning, all of Jehovah's Witnesses congregated together in small groups. Jehovah's Witnesses all over the world would send a telegram to the Hitler government.
Your ill treatment of Jehovah's Witnesses shocks all good people of earth and dishonors God's name. Refrain from further persecuting Jehovah's Witnesses. Otherwise, God will destroy you and your national party.
Suddenly, the Allied troops bombarded Wewelsburg. The guards scattered. Mox and 10 other prisoners ran for cover in the north tower of the castle. Ironically, it was the very place that Himmler envisioned as the center for SS cult worship.
Watchtower Corporation is notorious for whitewashing its history. The following clips were removed from the original VHS version of this propaganda film. It demonstrates the level of coercion Watchtower uses to convince its followers to break the law.
Throughout all the interrogations, they wanted to know the names of those whom we had dealings with, who accepted our literature and our main addresses. But I refused. It was all dreadfully nerve-wracking, and it led to my having a nervous breakdown.
And this magistrate said to me, "You cannot refuse to testify here with me." And then he screamed at me as loud as he could and said, "We are at total war. Do you know what that means? Are you going to continue to refuse to testify about your brothers?" He took the revolver, released the safety catch in front of my eyes, put up his hand and said, "Are you willing to lose your life for your faith?" I looked at my father and then at the other brothers behind. Auf Wiedersehen. Farewell. If it has to be. Yes. Ja.
Watchtower propaganda has been deemed subversive, seditious, and degrading to the moral fabric of society by every major world power throughout their history. When will the world wake up to the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses are not a religion, but a criminal organization?